The first 15 months of coming out the gates in my two companies, I was able to generate 7 figures organically. When I say organically, no website, no SEO, no paid ads, no marketing budget, no funnels, no AI, no tech, no CRM, and not one email was sent out, right? I had no YouTube channel, no podcast. Everything I built was just organic word of mouth growth. What I pride myself in, dating all the way back to childhood, is I was a connector.
Yeah.
I love being around people. I love making friendships. I love serving people. I've always had that inner, I want to help people inside of my heart. When I decided to come out and start my own business, I asked myself, how have I helped my own life? And the first thing I did, the first company is called the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf. And the first product that came out is called the Morning and Evening Routine Mastery Program. Because I changed my life in 2019 by way of morning routine, evening routine. My entire life changed. So I said, oh my gosh, better marriage, more money, lost the business, got into debt, the list goes on, right? All across my 10 life domains. So I said, I should teach people how to do this in 8 weeks versus 1 year that I did with everything I have, and I'll start a course. That course took off, which led me to a book called Winning the Day, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Morning, Evening Routine Mastery. So then I said, oh my gosh, okay, that's awesome. What's the other business I can launch? Because I had 2 ideas. I said courses, programs, books, and I said, oh, I should launch a community, a membership. Because I went all the way back to my childhood and I said, what is something that I was passionate about, that I'm good at, that I have skill set, and that I think could be profitable that the marketplace needs? And I married all those things. And I said, I was always the one in recess leading the group in recess. I was always the one in middle school leading the pack, causing trouble. I was always the one in high school leading the parties and doing all those things. Then after that, I was always leading in my corporate arenas. I was a manager, I was a coach, a consultant. So I said, I'm always leading. And I know all these people now over the years of personal development, going to all these events and seminars and boot camps. I said, let me just bridge everybody under one umbrella and I'll charge a small fee and start a community. And that took off. And now we have 452 members in 46 states, 25 countries.
Great title for a podcast, Blessings.
Thank you. Yes, I love it.
What a great meditation.
We are here to learn in the spirit of life.
I'm all about believe. You're about spreading blessings. It's great.
What about your blessings? What's the biggest blessing of life?
What a great question.
Because it's the Blessings podcast, I have to ask you, what is your biggest lesson in life?
My biggest lesson in life.
A whole lot of conversations with people about life and how those things manifest as blessings and lessons, and sometimes both. It's my connection.
You're going to get schooled.
The journey is the journey.
What you and me are searching for are the blessings in this life.
Remember the reality of how sweet people are.
Spread blessings around the world.
You are the most remarkable energy. You make me pause, make me excited, make me think, and make me spontaneously come up with an answer. This is another one of those great moments in time in my life. Thank you for reaching out to ask if I would do the show.
Welcome back to Blessings, friends. Today, I'm sitting down with a powerhouse, a father of 6, a master of sales, a devotee of martial arts, and a mentor for entrepreneurs across the world, and the founder of the Connected Leaders Academy. He has found great success in his life by tuning into the lessons and the blessings, and then acting to transform based on the information he has gathered from his experiences. He is a living example of blessings in action. His book, Winning the Day, chronicles the specific actions he takes consistently to be successful in life and business and feel fulfilled. He says, we must be willing to confront ourselves daily with the reality of how we're living. And I agree. So let's talk about it. Welcome, Jose Escobar, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitzi. I'm excited for today's conversation, eager to dive in.
Me too. All right. So I'm going to ask you a big question. What have you confronted yourself about lately?
What I've confronted myself about lately, if I had to put it into one piece, it would be the importance of massive action, which ultimately goes back to not trying to be perfect in everything that you're doing, just pulling the trigger and executing on things quickly, right? Because the more we overthink, the less likely we are to actually implement. And there's this phenomenal quote that I can't really label it to someone in particular. I heard it somewhere, but it's complexity is the enemy of execution. So I'm a massive action person. I'm a person that just pulls the trigger and runs hard, quick, efficiently, of course, with proper planning beforehand. But that's a big lesson that I've learned. I've achieved way more in the last 3 years than I have probably all the years collectively before that, because I was always the planner, learner, no execution or slow execution.
Yeah. And I want to get into all the success that you've been able to build so quickly, because I know people are going to be very interested in that and how you've managed to do that. So we're going to dig into that. But I'd like to take people back a little bit just to talk about where you came from that helped you to establish this work ethic that you carry with you and these values. Where were you born? And tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Sure. That's definitely a wonderful thing I enjoy talking about, because for some people, they'll look at my story and say, oh, poor you, or you had to go through that. But for me, it was what made me who I am today. So first of all, I was born in Washington, D.C., raised in Montgomery County, Maryland all my life. I'm 41, so you can do the math. I've been here for a long time. My parents came here. They migrated from Guatemala, right? They came the legal route, did the whole process back then when it was easier. And they came and they wanted a better life for us and for our future generations and all those wonderful things. And we still have a lot of family back in Guatemala, but my two older brothers were born there. Myself and my younger brother were born here. And they came with a ninth grade education, no money, no connections, no nothing, right? They just basically said, we're going to create a better life. My dad came first. My two older brothers and my mom were in Guatemala. My dad came, started building houses. He started working as a dishwasher at restaurants and worked his way up to like busboy and server and supervisor and manager and regional manager. And eventually he became a restaurateur and owned a couple of restaurants. And there was that. So he went through the tough, hard labor for many years. And then eventually he brought my mom here and my two older brothers. And my mom came and started cleaning multiple houses a day. She cleaned like 4 or 5 houses sometimes every single day, Monday through Friday. And then she would come home, and little by little over time, she was building this side hustle, like this business, multi-level marketing business called Jafra Cosmetics, which is very similar to Mary Kay, right? So they're a competitor there. And she started building it on the side little by little. And my dad would come home and sleep for 3 or 4 hours a night. He would come home late at night from working at 3 different restaurants. And that's how I grew up from 0 to about maybe 13 years old. We lived in an apartment for many years, and me and my 3 brothers would share a room with bunk beds. And we saw very little of my parents a lot of times. Now, of course, they made efforts to spend time with us, especially on Sundays, that kind of a thing. But it got to the point where they were like working so hard. And I saw what hard work was. I saw what discipline was. I saw what consistency was. They always provided in terms of love in the home, God in the home, food on the table, roof over our heads. So we had the bare essentials of what we needed. But I never knew that I was broke, I guess you could say, because we had what we needed. But I just knew that we didn't have extra. Mm-hmm. So that was how I grew up. And I saw my parents, I guess this December, it'll be 50 years of marriage. I saw love, what that means. I saw parenting, what that means. I saw having faith and being a good Christian, what that meant. I saw what being a good person meant. And above all these things, what was woven in between all this, the interconnectedness, was hard work, consistency, resourcefulness, and just commitment to anything you decide to do. And that over time molded me. And so I grew up as in a not so flashy way, but in a way that served me well, because now to this day, I took all of the right lessons that I needed, and I tweaked the things I didn't really see as beneficial to me, and I just made them better.
It sounds like you had an amazing foundation, and I think that really illustrates the importance of family and providing that strong foundation for our children. Can you talk a little bit about your childhood experiences? Is there like a core memory from when you were young that helped shape you?
A core memory that helped shape me. Yeah, I would. There's a few. But if I had to give you just one that stands out, I would say spending time on Sundays with my family. Right. My parents always made the effort with the little time that they were able to give us. Right. They always made the effort to find some quality time for us to spend together. So my dad would wake up on Sundays to make pancakes. And he would invite me in the kitchen, and all my brothers would be running around doing things. And I would be sitting there, and he would talk to me, and he would help me flip the pancakes or, all that kind of stuff. And we'd listen to music, and my dad would listen to Have You Ever Seen the Rain? I don't forget who sings that song, but that kind of music. We were just enjoying ourselves on Sundays, and we'd go to church together, and then we'd watch the Commanders. Now it's the Commanders, the Redskins. We were growing up, and Sundays was fun. And he would find a way to take us to the park and do things like that. So those family times, of the importance of family, whenever you have that time together, it was not we're all in different rooms in the same house. It wasn't we're all in the same room, but with our mobile phones. Yep. It was like we were actually spending quality time together, and the family values and the faith, the value of faith that we grew up with. I think that is what set the tone internally for me to, as much as I got in trouble along the way and lost my way, as much as I, now that I'm married and have kids, like that is what helps me be the husband and the father that I am today.
So when you were growing up and you were subjected to this family that provided this strong foundation for you, once you got to the point where you were like feeling yourself and trying to figure yourself out, what would you say that was like for you when you, as you say, lost your way?
The good news is that the foundations of how you're raised are always going to be inside of you. It could be some negative seeds that were planted, some positive seeds, some bad experiences, good experiences. It just molds who we are, right? The things that we're told growing up, the experiences we've had, the neighborhood we grew up in, all those things. So my parents always instilled love and character and honesty and integrity and hard work and all those things inside of me. So when I did lose my way, and I towed the line quite a bit, I've been in all kinds of trouble you can think of, from like sixth grade all the way up until 25-ish, maybe a little bit more, somewhere in that neighborhood of time. But it was a lot of wasted time to where I was just partying, I was causing trouble. But no matter what I did, Mitzi, I never went so far as to go over the edge to something where I couldn't come back from. Right. I would always stop myself. Something inside of me just made me say, okay, this is as close as you're going to get to the edge. It's time to go back to who you are. Right. I always had that inner voice that would help me navigate the tough times. But I was always a leader growing up. I was a leader since I was a kid. I was the one in the household that would bring my family together and say, hey, let's play a board game. Hey, let's watch a family movie. It's Friday night, a family movie night kind of thing. And I would go pop the popcorn and say, hey, and they would smell it. Oh, that's Jose again, wanting to watch Mrs. Doubtfire, whatever it was. But I was like that from the very beginning. In recess in middle school, guess who was the one that was organizing the basketball games and all the other things, soccer games that we were doing outside? And in high school, guess who was throwing the house parties and finding all the resources to get all the appropriate things to make a crazy house party? That was me. So I was a leader in the positive and the negative, but no matter how far I got to the edge, I always had that internal dialogue that was really installed by my parents growing up.
Yes. And that's why it's so important to have that. And something that's often missing today in a lot of families, unfortunately, but you are single-handedly working to bring that back with your large family.
Yes.
So you have a lot of children, 6, right?
6. Correct.
Yes. And are you planning to have more children?
So that's a good question. My wife always says, why do people ask us if we're planning to have more if I'm still like trying to work with the one I just had? She's, can I just enjoy my 7-week-old before you ask me that question? That's my wife. Me, on the other hand, I answer all questions. And it's very simple. I would like 10. If I could, we would have 10, right? I love a big family. I enjoy all of the personalities. I love the busy home, the things to do, the going out and just, I love that. I just truly enjoy that. And I grew up in a decent sized family. I had 3 brothers, so it was 4 boys and my 2 parents. So I have a good idea in that sense. But my wife, she hasn't quite fully decided. She said, maybe not. I really don't know yet. We'll play it by ear. So that's where she's at. So who knows? Maybe we'll have 1 more. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll have 3 more. I don't know.
Okay. But the door is open.
I guess so.
At least halfway.
I guess it's cracked. I wouldn't say it's open. It's probably cracked and she's ready to close it, but I don't know yet.
All right. But I think that's interesting. There are so many benefits to a large family. And like you said, you always have somebody there. You always have a best buddy. And I didn't grow up with that. I was always jealous of the people who had big families. So I love that you're doing that. And I think it's really important to have that core, like foundational group of people who are your no matter what people that you're building for your kids for a lifetime.
Yeah. Again, to me, it just brings me great joy to see them grow, to see them engage with the world, to see them love each other, and just the whole dynamic, especially when we're all together. There's nowhere I'd rather be when we're all together, just doing what we're doing. Literally, it's just, that is the perfect moment for me.
I love that so much. You talk about in your book the idea of your marriage being something that is a focus for you. And you mentioned that you and your wife went to one of the Gary Chapman workshops, the guy who wrote the book, The 5 Love Languages. And I love the idea of going to one of his live workshops. I've read the book, and I think it's just an amazing way to approach a relationship from understanding your partner's needs. So what did you learn in that workshop that really helped you in your marriage?
The Five Love Languages, first of all, is a phenomenal book, right? I always just saw it as a book, but little did I know he actually does seminars. He goes around the country, does all kinds of workshops and stuff. So we went, I saw it, and I was like, hey, we should go. And my wife, of course, is all about that. So we went, got to meet him, and purchased some other books of his, which I didn't realize he had. And the biggest takeaway for me is I didn't realize that my wife didn't feel as loved as I felt when I would give her gifts, right? Because there's gifts, quality time, personal touch, words of affirmation. That's, I think there's five, there's one more. So for me, it's gifts. If somebody buys me a gift, even if they write me a physical card, right? Or anything, any physical gift, I feel really loved, right? And my backup love language is words of affirmation. When people say good things like, Jose, you're such a leader, you're a winner, you're this, I love listening to those words. So those are my two. My wife, on the other hand, is not gifts. That's last on her list. If I were to buy her something, which I've done many times before I understood this concept, I would be like, oh, yes, she feels loved and all that. But for her, it didn't really move the needle in the love space. So for her, it's what is this? Acts of service, right? So when I wash the dishes, when I take out the trash, when I say, hey, go ahead and take a nap and I'll watch the kids for you. Those are the things that make her feel loved. And when I understood that, it's amazing how she reciprocated and how the home just felt warmer and how she was smiled more because she felt loved. And here I was for a while thinking, oh, she must feel loved. I brought her some roses. Oh, I got her this. I got her a new jacket. I look at that handbag I got you. And that didn't really do much for her. So that was the biggest thing, is understanding how she feels loved, understanding how I feel loved, and for us speaking the same language to each other.
Yeah, so important. I'm also gifts. And then I think that people who have gifts as their love language, we like to give gifts. We're givers. Yes. And you can get to a place where you're overgiving, people pleasing even. Do you ever find yourself tipping over into that?
Yes, of course. I have, as a gift giver, as somebody who loves gifts, you love to give gifts. And if somebody doesn't stop me, I might overdo it. And people might get accustomed to me always giving them gifts. And then you can almost hurt yourself and shoot yourself in the foot sometimes, because when you stop doing that, they think you don't really care anymore. So there's a fine line between giving gifts during the right times and for the right reasons, and then overdoing it, right? To where you're filling your own bucket to give gifts when your intention is to help somebody else. And so there's a few different reasons why it's important to have a healthy balance.
I know that in the beginning, you talked about how your biggest mindset shifts occurred within the last 2 or 3 years. And you talk about this in your book, how 2019 was a turning point for you. And one of the things you mentioned was that you found yourself with different, I guess we'll call them sort of addictions. And one of them was like a shopping addiction. And that's really interesting to me, because I had that same issue in my life at times. And I also my love language is gifts. And you're just making me think that has to be tied somehow together.
Maybe. I haven't actually thought about that, but there is definitely a correlation. It just makes logical sense based on how you just described it. I actually just had a very interesting conversation with a gentleman by his name is Shiraz Babu. He's in the Connected Leaders Academy. His title is a reality reinventionist. As a matter of fact, great guy for your podcast. But
okay.
He gave me a breakthrough yesterday. We had a conversation, and I'll share it here for the first time. That kind of is in line with what we're talking about when it comes to spending. So I'm a spender. My wife is a saver, right? I'm quick to buy something. My wife is quick to save that money. If it's up to her, we would live in an apartment or in a condo with little things and just traveling and doing other things, but with little actual physical things at home. For me, I would like to live in a luxurious, massive mansion and have all kinds of things in it. So we're very different in that sense. So we balance each other out very well. In terms of the breakthrough that I had mentioned to Shiraz, I said, hey, listen, this is what the biggest challenge. Because he asked me, what is one of the biggest challenges that has frustrated you over the years? I said, it's saving money. Like, just putting money away for me has never been a thing. I've always been poor when it comes to like money management, of saving money. As soon as money comes in, I'm finding where can I put it in terms of spending it somewhere. And then I find myself in situations where I need money. And even if I make money, it's just hard to keep it. So it doesn't matter how much money you make if you can't keep any of it. You can make $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, but if you're spending just as much, then you're back at square one. But I always found myself in situations where I was, okay, got to do this, but I don't have the money. And sometimes my wife would be like, how in the world do you not have the savings with all this money? It doesn't make sense to me, right? But it was my thing. So the breakthrough that he gave, and I fixed it since, but I never understood why, like the deeper layers of why. So this is what he said to me. And I wrote it down. He said, Jose, you believe that you operate at your best when your back is against the wall. He said, when your back is against the wall and you have to show up for your family and for your wife, you're going to work super hard and you're going to make the money. And you operate best and you know yourself and you know that's the only way you're going to perform is if your back is against the wall, because deep down you have a fear, and your fear is that if you are comfortable with savings and retirement and you're comfortable with the amount of money you're making, you're going to get lazy. So you believe that if you could potentially get lazy, then you're going to affect your family in a negative way. And you're not going to be able to have that legacy and that financial independence and the big dreams and the lofty goals that you have because you think you're going to get lazy. So what if I told you that you don't have to perform when your back is against the wall? You can perform from comfort. And because you love your wife so much, and because you love your kids so much, and because you respect yourself enough and you have big dreams and big goals and you're capable, what if I told you that you can just have a massive savings account and save money off the top of everything and you won't get lazy? As a matter of fact, you're going to perform even better. So that whole mentality is a massive transformational shift for me, because I was always, and he's right, I realized that I perform when the money is like starting to do this. I'm like, oh, time to make things happen. And I can make it happen. But if I just did that on a regular basis and even being super good off, oh my gosh, I was like, wow, that's an interesting perspective.
That is an interesting perspective. It's almost like you needed to have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting breakthrough on
And
that.
that's what I saw. My parents, I grew up watching my parents in the have to mode.
Yeah.
And they're back against the wall mode. And it almost is the way I saw life. Like the way to work hard and to perform is because you have to. It's like you're, or you don't pay the light bill, or you don't eat, or you don't get to do this or that. So maybe I took a bit of that. And then because of my spending habits and just I like buying things, because maybe when I grew up, I couldn't get everything I wanted.
Definitely.
Right? So there's a lot of this like stuff that if it goes back to the way I grew up. So there's like pros and cons to everything, right?
Definitely.
How would you like to get the best text of your life? This is your sign that it's time to add something powerful to your morning routine that sets you up for success and reminds you that you are worthy and makes you unstoppable. It's a motivational text message from me, a real human. I am Mitzi Campbell, a mindset specialist, and I know that it is possible for you to live the life of your dreams. My morning motivational text messages help you up-level your mindset, your happiness, and your success. Sign up for a 2-week free trial at yourpositivemoment.com and change your life today. Join the movement so we can all thrive together. yourpositivemoment.com.
And I wonder if, as you shift that mindset as a result of that breakthrough, if your love language will shift.
Interesting. That's a good, yeah. I guess we'll have to do a part 2 one day.
There might be another breakthrough.
Yep.
Okay. That's super interesting to me. And so let's segue into the business stuff, because you have built a successful 7-figure business over a very short period of time.
Right.
Can you just tell us in a nutshell how you did that?
Yeah, the nutshell is quite big, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest.
It's a joke, but
I'll give you the small nutshell of it. But essentially, I was in the corporate world for a while. I was in the banking world. I was in life insurance. I was in property and casualty. It was about 17 years, 9 to 5, suit and tie kind of thing. Eventually, I got into the martial arts world because I realized there's more autonomy, less micromanagement. And I got into that, and I figured I can show up somewhere and wear a hoodie or a t-shirt or a hat, and nobody's going to judge me for not being professional. I got into that space, and I was the coach. I was a consultant for martial arts schools for a company called EFC here in Chevy Chase, Maryland. I did really well. I made a lot of people a lot of money in coaching and consulting. So I realized, oh my gosh, I'm pretty good at this thing, right? And simultaneously, I realized my income was capped. I was making a nice salary there, and the people that I was coaching were doing this. They were going up and up and up, but my income wasn't moving. So I said, it's time for me to start my own business, because 80% of what I was teaching these martial arts school owners had nothing to do with martial arts. It had everything to do with the 25 years of personal development stuff that I've learned over the years, like sales and organic marketing and people skills and networking skills and mindset, leadership, all that stuff, right? So I said, oh my gosh, I can start my own business. So I did. January 15th of 2022, almost 3 years ago next month. In the first 15 months of coming out the gates in my two companies, I was able to generate 7 figures organically. When I say organically, no website, no SEO, no paid ads, no marketing budget, no funnels, no AI, no tech, no CRM, and not one email was sent out, right? I had no YouTube channel, no podcast. Everything I built was just organic word of mouth growth, right? And because what I pride myself in, dating all the way back to childhood, is I was a connector.
Yeah.
I love being around people. I love making friendships. I love serving people. I've always had that inner, I want to help people inside of my heart. So when I decided to come out and start my own business, I asked myself, how have I helped my own life? And the first thing I did, the first company is called the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf. And the first product that came out is called the Morning and Evening Routine Mastery Program. Because I changed my life in 2019 by way of morning routine, evening routine. My entire life changed. So I said, oh my gosh, better marriage, more money, lost a business, got into debt. The list goes on, right? All across my 10 life domains. So I said, I should teach people how to do this in 8 weeks versus 1 year that I did with everything I have. And I'll start a course. That course took off, which led me to a book called Winning the Day, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Morning, Evening Routine Mastery. So then I said, oh, perfect. So then I said, oh my gosh, okay, that's awesome. What's the other business I can launch? Because I had 2 ideas, right? I said courses, programs, books. And I said, oh, I should launch a community, a membership, because I went all the way back to my childhood. And I said, what is something that I was passionate about, that I'm good at, that I have skill set, and that I think could be profitable, that the marketplace needs? And I married all those things. And I said, I was always the one in recess leading the group in recess. I was always the one in middle school leading the pack, causing trouble, right? I was always the one in high school leading the parties and doing all those things. And after that, I was always leading in my corporate arenas. I was a manager, I was a coach, a consultant. So I said, I'm always leading. And I know all these people now over the years of personal development, going to all these events and seminars and boot camps. I said, let me just bridge everybody under one umbrella, and I'll charge a small fee and start a community. And that took off. And now we have 452 members in 46 states and 24 countries internationally, or 25 countries. So that is what I did. That's how I started. And when I say organic, I'll give you one example of what I mean. My program that I launched, the Morning Evening Routine Mastery Program. Everybody told me, Jose, you need fancy lights. You need a green screen. You need a professional videographer to come in and film it. You need a nice laptop with a good camera as well for different angles. You need a microphone. You need all these things, right? I did it with Zoom, like this, filming myself with the same semi-poor lighting that I have right now. I got those on Amazon. With my slides, I did it with Google Slides. Cost me nothing.
Yeah.
So everything that I did to launch that course, I did it with no money. And then organically, I'm just showing up on social media, going live, posting, going to events, going to local networking events, meeting people, joining free Facebook groups and meeting people. And all that organic stuff just led to people lining up and buying from me.
That's very inspirational. And you're a relationship builder. And
Yes.
you have a special way. You do have a special way with people. You have a charisma. And you mentioned you called yourself a sweet talker earlier.
I guess so.
So what kinds of physical characteristics and personality characteristics, how to win friends and influence people kind of thing, do you tap into to help build those relationships? I saw this woman, she's a specialist in body language and things like this. And she was talking about how in order to get people, to make people happy and to make them feel comfortable around you and that you like them, you have to be aggressively engaged in liking people. Like you have to do what she called aggressive liking.
Yeah.
What kinds of tips can you give us for how to build the kind of relationship that then when you do start something, you can talk to people and they're going to want to be on the bus?
Yeah. So great question, great thought. And it's quite simple. And everything is simple, not easy, but simple, right? The biggest recipe, just a couple of things I'll throw out there that somebody could just start building better relationships and start getting more bang for their buck, and which goes a long way in many ways. First and foremost, and this is no particular order, you have to have a genuine interest to help people. You have to have a genuine heart to want to serve. And a lot of people don't actually. They don't, they just want money. They want to make more money, but they forget, oh, the only way to make more money is by helping people. So you have to have that heart to serve first. And people can tell the difference between somebody who's putting on a show and somebody who genuinely wants to help. So you got to have that heart. You got to check your heart first. So you got to do some inventory, and you got to ask yourself, how can I put myself in a place where I only want to help people? And I know if I help enough people get what they want, I'll get what I want. Zig Ziglar. So that was the first thing. You have to have a genuine interest and really care about people. You have to have a heart of service. The next thing I'll say is you have to have a presence. You have to have, people need to know when you're in the room, when you show up. They need to know when you've left the room. If people have no clue whether you arrived or left, that's a problem. Because that means your personality isn't magnetic. You don't have that presence. And that presence is one of leadership. Right. So you got, when you walk in a room, people need to know that you've arrived. Oh, Jose's here. Oh, did you know Jose just got here? Oh, that's Jose right there, right over there. You see that? Like that, those little chatters in the corner are what you want, but that comes with having a presence, and it comes with having a magnetic personality. So that means if you have the personality of a stop sign normally, like I do, right? A lot of times I have a personality of a stop sign. My nature, this is my regular face, by the way. Do I look very welcoming to you?
No, not right now.
And then if I do this, even worse.
That's right.
And then if I'm wearing a t-shirt with all my tattoos showing, even worse. Right? So I understood that for somebody like me who naturally is very serious and has this really aggressive forehead here with the frown, naturally, it's my resting face, right? It's not even me trying to frown. So if I know that my personality is one of more introverted, I'm a very serious person by nature, I have a deeper voice, I'm not a short guy, so I'm taller, and I have a lot of tattoos, that could come across as intimidating, right? So I said, how do I de-intimidate myself, if that's even a word, right? How do I de-escalate the presence in a positive way? So I said, I have to smile. I have to use people's names and try to memorize their name and use it in the conversation. I have to have a firm handshake. I have to stand straight and have posture. I have to dress to impress. I have to dress nicer. I have to maybe wear a jacket when I make first impressions if I'm in the business world versus walking around in a t-shirt or a hoodie. I have to make sure that I smell good and look good, right? I have to put time and effort into my presence and how I show up, right? And then, of course, when I'm in the room, I have to laugh and I have to introduce other people to other people. And I have to tell people, hey, how can I help you? How can I serve you? I have to affirm people. You know, you're a winner. You know what? I love your personality. You have to compliment people. So if you're doing these things, and you also have to talk less and ask more and let people talk more. That's another thing when it comes to people skills. Some people talk too much. So when you're letting them talk, by the end of the conversation, you use their name, you were likable, you smell good, you look good. They were doing most of the talking, and that whole thing. They're going to walk away saying, oh my gosh, I really enjoyed Jose. When in reality, I didn't say very much outside of complimenting you a couple of times and affirming you a couple of times and saying, hey, I want to see you win. Let's find a way how I can help you. They just like you more. So those are just a couple of things to consider when you're building relationships. And you got to be intentional. You got to go out of your way to be seen, to be heard, and to be liked.
Yes. All of those things. You gave us so many tips. I think you gave us the whole book for how to win friends and influence people, actually. But no, all of that stuff works. And I think the key to that is really comes from an inner knowing, an inner drive. You have to be intrinsically motivated when you step into a room and feel confident in yourself so that you can convey that to others.
Yeah, I was just in a room, without naming names, but I was in a room at an event. I went to an event this past weekend that I was a speaker at, and there was this gentleman in the room, and he was just sitting there most of the time in a particular corner in the same seat, almost like it's an assigned seat. And it's not, but almost like that. And it was 3 days. And every day, same seat, same disposition, same facial expressions, same lack of vocalizing himself, and the whole thing. And at the end of the event, he asked me, hey, you know what? You really inspired me with a lot of the stuff that you said about working a room. Because I did the same exercise as I did at the Speaker Mastermind Live, where I started working a room. I said, this is how I would do it. This is what I do. And I went a bit further because we went into more depth. had a couple talks. And he pulled me aside and said, "I was just magic. That's going to change my entire game." And I said, "Okay, but listen, one thing is learning stuff and hearing stuff and saying you're going to do it. Another thing is immediately implementing what you just learned and applying it fast. The person who applies fast is the one who moves the needle. You heard me on Friday. This is Sunday. And you're telling me what you're going to do. You could have done it Saturday and all of today, but you didn't. Same spot, same everything. You don't start Monday. You start now. So it's so important that in order to impact people and to become better with people skills is whatever you learn, just apply it and apply it over and over and over and fast. And if you do, wow, amazing what can happen.
That reminds me of something I have written down from your book, that you say you have to confront yourself daily and really be honest with yourself about what you're capable of. And when I read that, I thought, that's great. And I agree. But are we really capable of doing that for ourselves all the time? Do we need an accountability partner? That guy needed you to say that to him.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, in my opinion. And this is my opinion and my opinion alone, because if we all agreed, the world would be a boring place, right? So
Yeah.
we can agree to disagree on a lot of things, but I believe we can hold ourselves accountable. And how do we hold ourselves accountable? It's called a journal.
Yeah.
Because a journal is your accountability partner. A journal is you taking your thoughts, taking it out of your brain and put it on paper so that you can look at it and read it and hear it and reflect on it. This is how we reflect, by checking ourselves. And we can check ourselves in a couple of ways: prayer, meditation, journaling, self-reflection, asking the hard questions, analyzing ourselves. If we're doing that, does an accountability partner take that to another level? Absolutely. Do I recommend one? Yes. It's called a coach or a mentor. In a lot of cases, sometimes it's maybe just another friend who's like on the path with you, right? That's okay too. But can you do it alone? Yes, you could do it alone. And you can do it by journaling and just making journaling a part of your morning routine and or evening routine.
I love journaling. I think it's very powerful. I love the idea of going into your journal and then reading aloud what you've written with your voice to even take it one step further. That's great too. You talk about something that I had never heard of, and I'm obsessed with it in your book. Now it's called commonplacing. I had never heard of this. And I was a college professor for 35 years in the area of English, and I had never heard of this. So the idea of it's really just essentially an encyclopedia of your personal brain, of the things that you think are interesting, references, things that, just as a brief definition, it's just basically that you take the little notes that you jot down, the things you want to remember, the recipes, the quotes, the pictures, all of this stuff together in one place. And so for you, you said you use index cards and keep it in file boxes. So just talk to us a little bit, because we're getting close to the end, but I just wanted to touch on the commonplacing, because I think that is such a strong tool for organizing your mind and keeping track of all the things that you want to remember along the way of your journey.
Yeah, quite simply, follow two people that put me onto this. You get it. This is called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
Robert Greene.
48 Laws of Power. I love anything Robert Greene.
Yeah.
And Robert Greene is Ryan Holiday's mentor. Ryan Holiday is the guy, Stillness, Stoicism, and this is called Stillness is the Key. That's one of his books, one of many books that he has. Yeah. I get all of his books, signed copies. I follow him quite a bit. So I'm a big fan of those two gentlemen. And because of them, it brought to my awareness. So that's where the credit goes to learning about it, because they both implement those strategies. And so does John Maxwell. John Maxwell talks about file, right? He talks about the 5 things you're going to do every single day. And one of those things is filing away, which is basically commonplacing. Mm-hmm. So every single night in my evening routine, on the other bookend of my day, I file away 5 things. I commonplace 5 things. And this, since this is a video podcast here, this is my filing system right here. So I'm showing you in real time. This is one side. I have many of these that I've been using over the years that I file away. Categories like manhood, finances, reading, leadership, faith, winning, losing, goal setting, fear, commitment, habits, evening routine, productivity, affirmations. The list goes on. All kinds of categories. These are some that I'm filing away here. So if I just had to show you one example, this is what one of my cards would look like, right? It tells you where I got it out of a book. It tells you that the category is parenting. And it says here, Decisive Parenting by Michael Moynihan, which is the actual book. So the title of the book, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it says the child knows that these screens are not really good for him. After hours of such mind-numbing activity, he feels empty, recognizing the absence of the good that should have been present. He senses that his parents are really not right to be allowing him to do this. Though he cannot articulate it, he recognizes on some level the loss of his dignity in being allowed to medicate his boredom through such captivating entertainment. This is true even though he would forcefully rebel if his parents took the screens away from him, especially if the addictive pattern of drowning in boredom through screens use is ingrained. Page 13. So this is just one example. So that right there is something, and when it comes to parenting, if I ever have a speech or a workshop or anything that I'm going to do, and I'm going to talk about on any level parenting, I'll go to my commonplace book. I'll look at this section of parenting and I can find quotes, statistics, articles, poems, whatever on that topic. And that's the power of commonplacing. It goes back to Marcus Aurelius back in the long time ago, all the way up to Ronald Reagan and people to this day.
I love it. I love it so much. And I feel like I'm so far behind now because I do it, but I didn't have that name for it. And it's not all in one place. And I'm going to start doing this. Marcus Aurelius Meditations is really just like one big commonplace book.
Yes, precisely.
Which is very interesting. You can only read one or two of those at a time because your brain has to process them.
It's very dense, very rich.
It's very dense.
Content. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh. Jose, I've really enjoyed speaking with you. I wonder if you can just indulge us with one quick question here to close out this amazing conversation. Because it's the Blessings podcast, I have to ask you, what is your biggest blessing and your biggest lesson in life?
My biggest blessing is my family, because my family needs me as much as I need them. And together we can do so much impact in the world, and we can change lives. Not only our own, but all of the people around us in our worlds, right? The butterfly effect, right? Everybody's trying to change the world, but you got to start by sweeping in front of your own doorstep. And that's your family, your home, right? So that's the first piece. That's my biggest blessing. And you say my biggest lesson, is that your question?
Yes.
My biggest lesson is stop procrastinating, stop delaying, stop making excuses on things you can do today, right now. There's too many things that need to be done and put out into the world to make greater impact that you're sitting on right now as we speak. If you're listening to this right now, there is something that you can do today, this week, that you're holding off on for God knows what reason. Could be a lack of confidence, could be a lack of resources, it could be a lack of financials, time, whatever. At the end of the day, while you're making those excuses, while you're overthinking it, somebody's pulling the trigger on that. It's time to stop overthinking. It's time to stop delaying, stop procrastinating, stop making excuses. Take massive action in everything that you do strategically, and your life can change today.
You've inspired me. Thank you so much for being here with me today. This conversation is going to have so much value for people, and I really appreciate everything that you've shared. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody still listening, will you go give a 5-star review to this podcast? Mitzi puts in so much effort and so much love into this. She's brilliant. She deserves it. So I am going to go right now. By the way, by the time you hear this and you go give your 5-star review, you should be able to go find my 5-star review of this podcast. But I just want to thank you for what you're doing.